Health experts say processed foods could be killing you. The alarm is out there. Let's take a look. And joining us on the Factor Uncensored, Dr. Danish Ali. Dr. Ali from Archpoint Pain Institute. Many people simply can't afford the meats, the fruits, the vegetables that are out there. So some people resort to eating processed meat. And of course, now we're hearing it can be very dangerous to you down the road. So how do you even address that?
Yeah, Isaiah, we're going to get a lot of hate for this. And who doesn't like a nice little quarter pounder from McDonald's, you know? I get that. But the message is going to be, Isaiah, everything in moderation. So moderation is so important. You know, if we just stick to processed foods only, we're going to have a hard time. And yes, as you're talking about, we're producing all these carcinogenic substances, all these things that are potentially very harmful for your body if that's all we're doing. So the message is going to be stay as much away from processed food as much as possible, with the idea of knowing that reality is we can't stay away from it. And there are substances that are processed. There are things that, you know, for example, for time, you know, you may have a very limited time or financial situation where you have to, you know, maybe consume some of that processed food from wherever.
Yeah, and I know we've seen in some examples, people eat like Vienna sausages, potted meat. Those are some of the obscure ones, but those are examples of processed meat. The Spam, which was very popular in this country during World War II. But, you know, people are still eating those things because it's affordable. Are there any alternatives if you're telling people to stay away from those processed meats?
So let's discuss, just to break down a little bit more. Processed food is anything that's been altered, right? So those cans, those meats, the hams, and those things that you're talking about are all processed. They've been injected with chemicals, in liquids, in different things to make them have a higher shelf life, to preserve them, to give them coloring. And so those are things that we're talking about. That's processed food, okay? Mm-hmm. Having said that, Isaiah, you know, there are cheaper alternatives, less processed food, because there is a category, right? So there's processed and there's ultra processed food. And that ultra is, for example, those, you know, chocolate ice cream or different sorts of meats that have been preserved with nitrates in them. There are lesser forms of that as well. So perhaps getting meat that is, you know, perhaps fresh. You are able to obtain some of these things that are not so expensive. I think it's a myth that, Isaiah, these are all expensive items, but the reality is, you know, these unprocessed things or fresher items such as fruit, you know, fresh meat, those are all things that are readily available and at places that can become very affordable as well.
Absolutely. However, you know, what we see in many communities are food deserts where it's virtually impossible to find the fresh fruits and vegetables. And if you do, it's not affordable to those who live in the area. So then they turn to the processed meats. But when we talk about the processed foods that are out there, tell us the dangers that you face. What are some of the health issues that you could get for using them excessively?
The biggest thing, Isaiah, is that these processed foods are low in fiber. Your body needs fiber to break down things, to process things. And so what happens is that stuff doesn't get processed, the nutrients don't get, there's not enough nutrients in these processed things. And so you end up over consuming different items and you end up snacking more often, and you're at a higher risk for diabetes. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. The other thing is that these processed things or foods are injected with things that make it preserved longer. Those are known factors for carcinogenics that may potentially increase your risk for different sorts of cancer, specifically colorectal cancer. And so that's why it's so important to consume in moderation, right? The other thing is there's so many websites out there, YouTube, online. There are different examples of ways to consume some of these processed foods that may not be as harmful. And so those are important things to keep in account. Isaiah, will we stay away from processed food? The answer is no.